The headlines were stark: Filipino cargo ship sinks near Scarborough Shoal. Typhoon Haikui, a sudden monster storm, had caught the oceanic voyager in its deadly grip. The ship, once a symbol of Filipino resilience, vanished near the disputed shoal. Its crew of 22 now feared lost. Families in Manila clung to hope, their faces etched with worry as they waited for news. The nation watched, united in anxiety, as the hours dragged on with no word. The last message from the ship spoke of giant waves and a failing engine. The oceanic voyager was declared missing, presumed sunk. For the families, every phone call brought a mix of hope and dread. The tragedy was not just a maritime disaster, it was a national heartbreak. The fate of the crew became a symbol of the risks Filipino seafarers face for their loved ones. As silence settled, prayers for a miracle echoed across the country. The nation held its breath, waiting for any sign of survival from the storm-tossed sea. In those tense hours, the line between hope and grief blurred for all. On deck, chaos reigned as Typhoon Haikui battered the oceanic voyager. Captain Rudy Gomez fought the wheel, while below, the crew struggled to keep the ship afloat. Waves crashed like mountains, rain blinded, and the ship groaned under the onslaught. Young sailor Jomar Santos clung to hope, thinking of his family as the storm raged. Suddenly, a rogue wave struck, a deafening crack. The ship lurched, alarms blared. Abandoned ship. In darkness and terror, the crew scrambled for life rafts. Adrift, the survivors huddled together, battered by wind and rain, counting heads and realizing some were missing. The storm showed no mercy, but they clung to life, praying their mayday had been heard. Each minute felt like an eternity as they drifted, cold and exhausted, in the vast, indifferent sea. Their only comfort was each other and the faint hope of rescue. The ocean was merciless, but their will to survive burned bright. In the darkness they called out, refusing to surrender to despair. The ordeal was a test of endurance, faith, and brotherhood. All they could do was wait, hoping for a miracle on the horizon. As the ship faltered, radio operator Rico sent a desperate mayday. "This is Oceanic Voyager. We are sinking. 22 souls on board." The signal, crackling through the storm, reached rescue centers across Asia. In Singapore and Manila, officials plotted the ship's last known position, right in the typhoon's path. The Philippine Coast Guard scrambled, but the storm was a formidable barrier. The mayday triggered a race against time, with every minute critical for survival. In China, the distress call was received at the Guangdong Maritime Rescue Center. Despite the political tension, the law of the sea demanded action. The Chinese Coast Guard cutter CCG-5204 was ordered to the scene. For the survivors, hope faded as hours passed, their world reduced to the tossing rafts. They scanned the horizon, praying for any ship, any flag. In that moment, nationality meant nothing. Only rescue mattered. The mayday was a lifeline cast into the unknown. The world watched, waiting to see who would answer the call. The ocean was vast, but the duty to save lives was universal. All that mattered was survival. Just as hope began to fade, a light pierced the storm. A large white ship approached, the Chinese Coast Guard. The Filipino sailors stared in disbelief. This was the last vessel they expected. Political tensions vanished in the face of survival. Captain Lin Jianyu and his crew expertly maneuvered through the waves, scanning for life. The Chinese rescuers prepared ropes and life rings, risking their own safety. The survivors waved and shouted, tears of relief mixing with rain. The massive cutter was a sanctuary in the chaos. In that moment, they were not adversaries, but mariners united by the sea. The Chinese crew's determination was clear. They had come to save lives. The storm's fury was met with courage and skill. For the Filipino sailors, rescue had arrived from the most unexpected source. Humanity triumphed over politics in the heart of the storm. The rescue was a feat of bravery and seamanship. Chinese Coast Guard crew launched small boats into the raging sea, battling waves to reach the life rafts. Rescue swimmers in orange wetsuits pulled exhausted Filipinos aboard, shouting encouragement over the roar. Some survivors were too weak to move. Rescuers jumped in, securing them with harnesses. Each transfer was a victory against the storm. The operation lasted hours, with searchlights sweeping the dark waters for every last survivor. The Chinese crew treated the living and the lost with dignity. On board, the Filipinos received warmth, medical care, and compassion. Gratitude needed no translation. Safety had been restored. With survivors safe, the next challenge was their transfer. The Chinese and Philippine Coast Guards coordinated, setting aside rivalry for collaboration. The BRP Gabriela Silong met the CCG 5204 at sea, a powerful image of unity. Survivors crossed a bridge from one ship to another, symbolizing hope and cooperation. The bodies of the lost were handed over with solemn honors. Officials ensured the process was smooth and respectful. For a few hours, politics gave way to humanity. The rescue proved that even in contested waters, nations can work together when lives are at stake. In Manila, news of the rescue brought tears and celebration. Families who had waited in agony erupted in relief as they saw their loved ones safe on TV. Gratitude for the Chinese Coast Guard was overwhelming, politics forgotten in the face of survival. "They saved my husband. They are heroes," said Jomar Santos's wife, echoing the nation's thanks. Official statements from the Philippine government expressed deep appreciation to China for their swift action. The story became a rare symbol of hope and compassion between the two countries. The rescued sailors, emotional upon arrival, spoke of the professionalism and bravery of their rescuers. "We thought we would die. Then we saw that ship. We owe them our lives," said Captain Gomez. Their testimonies carried more weight than any political statement. The rescue shifted the narrative from conflict to compassion. It showed that, in crisis, humanity can bridge even the deepest divides. The nation celebrated not just survival, but the power of cooperation. For a moment, hope triumphed over history. The rescue was a rare pause in the ongoing South China Sea disputes. For years, the region has been defined by confrontation and mistrust. This event rewrote the script, replacing conflict with cooperation. The Chinese Coast Guard's decisive action prioritized saving lives over politics. The incident created a brief but meaningful dialogue based on shared values. For a moment, the two nations were partners in a humanitarian mission. The rescue offered a glimpse of what's possible when compassion leads. Political issues remain, but this act stands as a symbol of goodwill. In a sea of tension, a single act of kindness shone like a lighthouse. The rescue underscored a core maritime principle, the duty to render assistance. Enshrined in international law, this duty transcends borders and politics. The Chinese Coast Guard's response was a textbook example of this tradition. They acted without hesitation, fulfilling their obligation as mariners. The incident proved that the law of the sea is about saving lives above all else. It showed that humanitarian action can occur even in contested waters. The story is a testament to courage, compassion, and cooperation. In the end, the ocean reminds us we are all in this together.